Hi everyone, this is Templa with Stylishly Sew, and today I am going to show you how to get started sewing your first sewing stitches. So to get started, I have my machine now. First, I'm going to select the type of stitch. So today I'm just showing you the basic sewing stitch, straight stitch. So that is my option 01. You'll see 01 shows up here. We're not going to be changing the width because it's a straight stitch, but if you wanted to change the length of your stitch, and you can play around with this, my machine goes from 0 but goes all the way up to 5 in terms of the stitch length, and so you'll see that's what this diagram is showing. I typically, for regular straight stitch, it's somewhere between like 2.4 and 2.6, and that's how I set my machine up. Okay, so if I set you up here, so here I have 2 pieces of fabric. When you're sewing just a regular stitch, not anything like a French seam, but just regular seams, you'll have 2 pieces of fabric that you'll put right sides together. And when you sew things right sides together and you sew the seam, which is the line of stitching down the side, when you open that up, it will have the nice part of the fabric and then have the raw edge in on the what's called the wrong side of the fabric. So okay, so once you have a couple of pieces of scrap pieces of fabric and you've threaded your machine, I want to make sure that you set yourself up correctly. So this is the throat plate, and if you haven't done my anatomy of the sewing machine lesson, I'll link to that in the caption of this video. But these feed dogs will actually pull the material through the machine when you engage the foot pedal. And remember, the harder you press the foot pedal, the faster the machine goes. So keep that in mind as you're learning to sew, that you may not want to push the foot pedal all the way down to the floor if it goes really fast. Okay, the other thing that you're going to be using today is the presser foot. You'll be lifting and lowering the presser foot with the presser foot lever. That does a couple of things. It obviously holds the fabric down against the feed dog so the machine can pull it through, but it also engages these the discs that are in between here, the tension disc. It engages those so that it creates the balance you need between the upper and lower thread, so that it has does the stitching. Okay, I think I've got you a little bit lower now and you can see it better. All right, there we go. Okay, on the throat plate, you're also going to see some lines here, and those lines are actually seam allowance lines. Mine go from like 3/8 to 4/8 to 5/8. A typical seam allowance is 5/8 if you're doing apparel sewing, and sometimes if you're doing home decor, it may be more like a 3/8 inch seam. So in this case, I'm going to be doing a 5/8 inch seam, and so make sure your presser foot is up. And then I have my 2 strings here, one from the upper thread and one from the lower thread. I'm going to line my fabric up with the raw edge against the 5/8 inch seam allowance line. I'm going to make sure that my needle's going to hit my fabric. I'm going to lower the presser foot. I'm going to make sure that there's that one thread, the upper thread is on the upper side of the fabric, and the lower bobbin thread is underneath the fabric, so it's kind of the fabric sandwiched between the 2 threads. Now, I usually do a locking stitch, and what that means is I'll do a couple stitches forward, then I'm going to, you'll see this, use my reverse button. I'll hold that down as I do a couple of reverse stitches to lock that in before I do my full seam. Now, I always kind of equate this to driving a car. So when you drive a car, you're not really looking at the front end of the car, like this would be the hood ornament, so to speak. You know, that causes you to veer right or left. What you're really looking at are the lines on the road, and in this case, the line on the road is this 5/8 inch seam. Okay, so as you're sewing, you're actually looking at where your fabric is, not at the needle. Okay, so that's how I equate that to driving a car. And just like a car, you're going to press the pedal, in this case the foot pedal, not the gas pedal. I do a couple of stitches forward. I'm going to push that reverse button. I'm going to go a couple of stitches backwards. That locks my stitch in, and now I'm going to continue my seam all the way to the end. Here we go. And that's all there is to it. Now, if I were at the end of my fabric and I wanted to lock that stitch in, again, I would push reverse, and then back up, and then I would go forward again and just lock that in. Make sure that your needle is up. Raise the presser foot, and then you can pull out the fabric, and then I trim my threads here. You can trim that down if you want, and then if you open that up, you can see you have a nice seam there. Let me see if I can get that. A nice seam. Okay, and then on the inside, typically what you would do now is you would open this seam up like this, and you press it open so it lays nice and flat like that. And that's it. That's sewing your very first stitches. If you have any questions, please hop down to the comments and put them there. Otherwise, please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, so you can get all the updates, and I look forward to seeing you in my next sewing video. Thank you. Bye.